All right. Well, speaking of Yellen, in addition to the hearing yesterday, Donald Trump singled her out in Monday's debate. Let's take a look at that.
We are in a big, fat, ugly bubble, and we better be awfully careful. And we have a Fed that's doing political things. This Janet Yellen of the Fed is doing political by keeping the interest rates at this level. And believe me, the day Obama goes off and he leaves and he goes out to the golf course for the rest of his life to play golf, when they raise interest rates, you're going to see some very bad things happen because the Fed is not doing their job. The Fed is being more political than Secretary Clinton.
Okay. We're all
Everything's fat.
Everything is
this
fat.
This universe is fat.
Yeah.
The stock market's fat.
Everything. Rana, you've written a lot about Janet Yellen. You wrote a cover story on her a few years ago, wrote about it recently.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to this accusation that the Fed is political, or is it out of left field?
Well, I think there's two things here. You know, it would be naive to say that the Fed is not under political pressure. Of course, the Fed has always been political to a certain extent, and there have always been battles. You know, you go back to the 40s, to the 70s, there were actually battles between Fed chairs and politicians about, you know, policy, and presidents always want the interest rate policy that forwards their goals, and the Fed chief is trying to do what's right for the economy. I can say, having interviewed Yellen many times, she is a very data-driven person. Mm-hmm. And there is a very legitimate debate to be had right now about when and how rates should be rising. I mean, she's very aware. The last time I spoke with her, she spoke about her concern about making sure that the market was not too frothy. And in fact, the Fed has put out notes about certain areas of frothiness, you know, in commodities, in commercial property, and high-tech stocks. So they're not unaware. But at the same time, she has to look at this rather weak recovery and say, if we hike right now, is it going to derail this nascent wage growth and you know, some of the good things that we're seeing?
Right, exactly. Because so far, I mean, there's been a decoupling, Anne, of the market and asset prices and Main Street and the real economy. And so the Fed's job, of course, is to monitor inflation and full employment. But what's your take on all this?
So one of the things that came up at that hearing was sort of the Fed governors being political entities, which I think is something that does exist. Lael Brainerd gave money to Hillary Clinton's campaign. It seems to me that there are a lot of backstops to keep this organization independent. But this in particular, for us, we're supposed to be objective. We can't give money to political candidates. I think the Fed should probably do more to eliminate the appearance of being political, particularly in an election year when everything is politicized.